Hey folks, welcome to the Salty Seaman, another Tales from the Fleet. I think this time let's talk about some food service attendant or mess cranking time for you guys about to go in the Navy. This is a little thing you have to do. If you watch some of my other videos, I talked about it here and there. For those of you who don't know, you know what it entails. Basically, when you're in the Navy and you go to a ship and you're a junior guy, for a while you're going to be washing dishes. It's just a fact of ship life. The junior guys come in and for 3 months to 4 months or whatever, they're in the scullery washing the trays, or they're in the deep sink washing the big dishes. They're helping serve the food line. They're cleaning the mess decks. Sometimes, doing various other chores, working for the cooks. It's usually not a fun time because this is like you get assigned to it basically right not long after you get to the ship. You may be just starting to work in your job and kind of learning what it entails, and all of a sudden, like, hey, gotta go. I'll see you in 3 to 4 months, and then you're doing some kind of menial task for a bunch of cooks, and you could be doing some high tech job or just anything really, and all of a sudden you're just doing this. I know I've heard about people who hated their divisions, people in deck and engineering. They actually liked it. They thought it was a better schedule and less work than what they were doing and didn't mind it so much. But for the majority of everybody, you just hate it because it's just not fun. So let me take you back to when I cranked back in 1997. I did it 1.5 times, and my story in particular. Now, the specifics on my ship at the time was mess crank FSA was E3 and below. And it was for 90 days. If you were still in E3, the next time your name rolled around, you could be sent back for a second tour for 60 days. So that was the basic terminology. And it was something, I believe my recruiter mentioned it. When we went through service week, they explained it like this: you'll be doing this on the ship. And as soon as I got the ship, it's like, oh yeah, you're going mess cranking soon. Just get used to the idea. So it wasn't like a total shock, but I don't think I really thought about it until I got to the ship and like it became like a reality. And and I'm just kind of there biding my time. I went through. If you listen to the other tales from the fleet, all the time I'm going through, it was getting to about 4 months, and I still wasn't sent. In fact, the two guys who came after me, Hall and Krantz, ended up going before me. And I eventually I ended up asking, because you don't want to ask. He's like, maybe someone missed you, and you're okay with it. I was just like, hey, why haven't I gone cranking? And it just became clear. And talking about Wywan Lee, who I used to work for, and I've talked about here plenty of times. Yeah, she didn't like sending people cranking at all. Like she hated the idea of she was a bit of a control freak, so people like running her people and her not being able to really have anything to do with them for 3 months probably pissed her off. She just liked the idea. It's like those should be doing their job and working here under me, and not over there working for the cooks. So in that way, I do kind of agree with her, and for my part, she kept me safe by of the three of us. Again, I wasn't her favorite person by any chance, but I was the one she liked the most and thought had the most quote unquote potential. So she managed to get me out of it for a good 9 months. Now, interesting story how I started my cranking career. So I got there in March of '96 and managed to get out of it till December '96, so 9 months. We were pulling out of Hong Kong. Now, I'm kind of skipping a bit here, but I wanted to jump ahead to the FSA thing. So, yeah, we went to Hong Kong. I took my first leave and had my first Midnight Liberty in quite a, since Guam, essentially. Just because I didn't have any days to take before that. And there was no place to really take them there, other than just a couple days around Yokosuka. But, yeah, I pulled into Hong Kong. Me and my buddy went out and, we enjoyed leave. I think we were supposed to be be in our hotel room between like 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. But, you had the leave shit. You didn't have to go back. Who the fuck's going to find you? So it was a good time. We get on our way back. We just been through a bunch of different exercises and a big import period, and we did. Did we go through that year? Yeah, we went through the huge overhaul, and there was an exercise in the middle. There was an import exercise in the middle of it, and it was miserable. I mean, I'll get to that at some point, but basically, there's a lot of people getting awards for various shit. So we, being the admin office, we were processing through. I mean, just bullshit awards for doing your job slightly excellently. I guess it's kind of a peacetime thing they started doing in the Navy, from what I'm told. But Y1 Lee decided she put the admin office in for letters of commendation from the CO, which means jack all. Like an admiral's letter of commendation gets you like half a point on the advancement test. Captain's letter does nothing, but it goes in your record and you put it on your eval. Whatever. Wasn't really a big deal, but yeah, we got put in for it. They accepted. So day was coming up. We have to go, not only man the awards ceremony because we're the yeoman, but, we're also getting awarded. Morning of this is like the day before we pulled in, I think, maybe, back to Yokosuka after Hong Kong. And, I was, I think I was basically down to my last decent shirt. It wasn't like, I was overdue for laundry, and I spilled a little coffee on it. And I was like, shit. Because the shirt was like, it already ironed it, and, it was ready to go. But I was like, fuck it. I can't go to the worst ceremony like this. Like, do I have anything else? And so I go into my rack, and I dig out an old boot camp shirt. It's the only thing I can find. It's this long, it's long sleeve and wrinkled as shit because it's just buried in there, and I haven't worn it in, probably 7-8 months. But I pull it out. I'm like, okay, well, I can fix this. No problem. So I put it on the ironing board, and I wasn't as savvy with ironing back then. If you know iron, you can dry. Most irons have a steam setting on it. You put water in it, blah blah blah. But you can do it dry or you can do it wet. This one didn't have any. Whatever iron I managed to get, because they kind of guard them like hawks on the ship. But the one I didn't get, didn't work or didn't have water in it, and I didn't bother to put any in it. I think the steam thing just didn't work. So I just okay, I keep it on all the way up high heat and just really work at ironing out all the wrinkles. I realizing this kind of shirt, no, it had to be steamed. There's no other way this shirt would be presentable. But I worked hard. I worked, put some elbow grease into it and had it stretched really tight across the board. And it looked fine at the moment. And I put the shirt on, and just over time, a lot of the wrinkles I thought I'd gotten out really weren't out and started slowly creeping back. We got to the office. Y2 Tate did a uniform inspection on us. And he did kind of notice, what the hell? The shirt's getting a little wrinkly there. I'm looking down, oh shit. And I was like, and I tucked it in really tight, and he's like, all right, you should be okay. And I told him, yeah. I was like, and he even asked me, he's like, what happened to the shirt you were wearing earlier? It's like, I had a stain on it, so I put that. He's like, all right, yeah, you'll be fine. Just keep it tucked in real tight. And we went. Now, of course, as wrinkled as this shirt was, that wasn't keeping it in tight wasn't going to work. By the time we were in the awards line, I'm looking down at my shirt and I'm just watching this nightmare unfold as the shirt just fucking retains its memory of old fucking wrinkles from being in my rack for 7-8 months. And I'm like, fuck. Is this really noticeable? Because you're staring right at it. How noticeable is it? Am I overthinking it? Or I'm like, and other times I'm like, no, fuck yeah, this is bad. And then other times no one's going to even fucking notice. You're thinking too much of yourself. So times comes around, they call my name. I'm going up in front of the captain to get my letter of commendation. And from deck department, wonderful BM3 Marzilli yells out, "Hey Owens, nice shirt," which gets a nice chuckle from the people who were looking at me even coming up. So yeah, whether or not anyone else would have noticed at this point, they definitely did now, because I get up there, and Captain, to his credit, he didn't even flinch. I can see Brett was the one Bockhorst was the one handing the awards to Y1 Lee and then to the captain. He's just fucking chuckling. and Wyman Lee is got her hands in her face. And I get my word, I go back to the line, and yeah, it's a shit show after that. They're just like, what the fuck, blah blah blah. I think Tate ran some interference because I mean he did fucking inspect us, and I had to explain to him what my theory on what happened to my shirt. And Wyman Lee came back down and like she didn't even fucking talk to me. Like I don't think I wanted to talk to her at that moment. But after about an hour in the office together, I went back and changed back into my stained shirt, which was like I said, the coffee stain. Like no one would have fucking noticed, but anyway. Yeah, and then after an hour, I'm like, I was at this point wasn't due to check into cranking for 3 more days, but I said this is the point they finally got me, or Wyman Lee like had to give me up. And at this point, of course, she's like ready to get me out of her fucking face. So yeah, so I go relieve the art. I just go up to her. It's like, hey, YN1, I think I'm gonna go ahead and check into to FSA duties. I'll go relieve RPSN, whatever her name was. And she says, that sounds like a good idea, Seaman Owens. And that's about all she said to me. And that's almost the last I saw of her, to tell you the truth, which is kind of funny. So I go to check in, and I'm originally on the mess decks, which includes the scullery where they wash the trays everyone eats off of. You keep the mess decks themselves clean, the surrounding areas, people, the seats where people eat, the food bars, the drink machines, everything, coffee. You do all that. I was there. I think close to the first month I was there, I was cranking. We pulled back in Yokosuka. Fairly cool schedule in port. You worked what's called 5 on 2 off. So, 1 week you would work the long shift every other day for like a full 5 days, or for 3 days during the week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the whole weekend. It wasn't a duty day. You could go home every night, but that week that's what you worked. You only had 2 short days, which meant you get off after breakfast or lunch. And the other week, that's all you did. You worked 2 days long, Tuesday and Thursday. Every other day during the weekday, you get off breakfast, lunch, whatever, and then the weekends you had off. And it really wasn't bad. Like I had a good time. I remember that was over Christmas, my first Christmas away from home. And it didn't really bother me. I was, at that point, just having fun, partying up on the haunch out in Roppongi. Ended up hanging out with some bros, Jay, Adam, Turley. I think it was where I met McCarthy, Wozniak, Lacey, and a couple other people, one of whom I really didn't like and almost fought, but another story. And yeah, it was pretty cool. Following up on that, though, that Christmas, and I think I had a real bad cold the whole Christmas, so it kind of sucked. I wasn't home. I was like, I think I went out like on Christmas night looking for poontang on the haunch. So what a fun, exciting life I was leading. But I just turned freshly 20 at that point, so it was doing what 20-year-olds do. Following that in January, we went on deployment. This would be my first deployment. I went on the Korean one in ultra focus lens, but that's like 6 weeks. It's not really deployment. It's just an exercise. And by most ship standards, it's not really long. Like, what they call Southern Swing is 3.5 to 4.5 months long. And it's the Admiral ship, so yeah, you're just going places and having fun. It's like really like people used to look forward to it all year on the ship because you just go so many awesome places, and it's worth dealing with the bullshit of being underway on a ship. So working with the cooks, we had it was supposed to be 2 on 2 off in port. So you have 2 days you work long, 1 day you work breakfast, and 1 day you have completely off, depending on the port visit. And first port was Singapore, which I've talked about a couple times on the show. The story with the hookers in Singapore with my buddy Jay. But and the next night I almost missed curfew twice. Once I did, my boss got me out of it. But beyond me, the boss was a cook, senior chief baker. But beyond that, like yeah, a bunch of the cooks, actual cooks, got in trouble, and we were in S2 division. And then CG Baker put out the rest of the crew is all ports to be port and starboard. Which again, no duty days, but you worked every single day. There was no complete day off. There was no day you slept in and you had it off, and there's no take. So even the days you're off, off quote unquote, you're missing. You're waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning doing breakfast, and then if there's stores, you're doing stores in the morning. So I mean, that's just how it fucking rolled. And yeah, that fucking sucked. I also I got in a fight with the then mess deck master at arms, MS2 Downs. He was a character, and most people who serve with me will definitely remember the guy. His nickname was Down Syndrome. Politically incorrect, of course, but I mean, this guy he was too dumb to be in the Navy. He was too dumb to be an E5. And I've met a lot of dummies, and in the Navy, and I've met a lot of dummies in the Marines, and he's the dumbest one I've ever met, and that includes infantry. Like, this guy was just fucking, I don't know what was wrong with him. There were rumors he'd been in a car accident and had brain damage, and it was like, he really didn't report it. He just somehow slipped through the cracks, coming up through the 80s. But I mean, he never made it past D5. He had a mail order wife from China. He got kicked out of the galley because he got caught masturbating during chow hours. I mean, he was a character, and that's why he was messing master at arms. Senior Chief Baker wouldn't let him in the galley anymore because he was he disappeared one day during meal hours, and they went and found him in his rack, and he was beaten off. Just had to do it right then. But yeah, he was just dumb, and I was just trying to explain to him how stupid he was. And, what he was trying to assign me was just retarded, and, sorry to use the word, but I'm thinking it downs here. And it just, I had enough of him, and I'm just, I know I'm a lowly seaman, but I know something about the way he wanted me to scrub some ladder wells, and I was just like, this is the dumbest thing possible. Here's, like, let me just do it this way, and I'll be done. And he's like, no, you have to, like, he wants to show me, and I'm like, fuck you, dude. You know what the fuck you're talking about? And we just start arguing. They pull us apart, and at the end of the day, I leave. They're just like, do you want to stay here? Or like, I mean, I think it'd probably be better for everybody if you go somewhere else. And I was like, yeah. Anywhere. Get me away from this idiot. And I've been having fun. I've been working in the scullery. I mean, I was literally looking forward to working in the scullery. Like, all the people I mentioned, we worked in the scullery during meal hours, and it was a fucking blast. It was, just having fun, blasting the music, and, we figured out, like, how to, like, soak the uneaten dinner rolls in hot water and throw them at each other, and they explode like these dough grenades, and we were just fucking having a blast. We nearly got in trouble. Like, we were doing all that, and like I threw one at I think this guy Turley, and he ducked. It hit the wall right next to the door as Senior Chief Baker walked in, and he asked who threw that, and no one, to their fucking credit, Blue Falcon me and fucked me. Everyone was just silent, and he just gave everyone just got 2 hours EMI. I mean, we were all doing it, but I mean, someone could have easily like just put the blame on me and let me just take the 2 hours, but no, it was just on me. And I'm sure it was nothing the senior chief hadn't said before, done, seen, or anything before. But he had to be the boss. But even that, it was just funny. That was just part of the lore. But yeah, then I had to leave those guys, and it kind of sucked. And then I was deep sink, so I was working, directly behind the cooks as they're cooking and serving the line, and they're handing us back these giant fucking dishes, and you got to put them through all these stations to get them clean, and it's just dirty, smelly work. I worked on deployment. We had a bunch of Marines with us. I ended up working with some Marines. PFC Caps, PFC Aaron's, and PFC Bernardi. Two of them were one was the Caps. The dumb one was infantry. Bernardi was Intel, and Aaron's was motor pool. And mostly, and they were fucking crazy guys, and I fucking loved them. They made things go better. I think it's probably I made friends with this guy Tony Wild, and a few others. Kind of made the time pass by. And there were good times. Like I said, you just sit there and like I said, you play music and you're doing this, and you're just the work sucks, the hours suck. Even when you're off, it would fucking sucked. And it was just, but you make friends, and part of that is like kind of what gets you by. It's just like you keep each other's spirits up. You're doing a shitty job. You're getting like screwed worse than anybody except maybe engineering on Liberty. And this is supposed to be, a 3 to 4 month fun cruise. And, but it's just like, at this point, it's a lot of more fond memories. Just, think of like, just the stupid shit we wrote on our like a little white like hats that would piss off the cooks, or getting in a yelling match about their rice pans and winning, and have everyone back at me and the rest of the cranks. Those were cool times. And even when we got in trouble and we had to work EMI, extra military instruction, after hours, because we skated off for like 3 hours one day or something. It's fun times. I remember because I was with friends, and like we were all in it together, and it was cool. And like I think mess cranking is one of the best times to make camaraderie with people on a ship like that. And especially, it's also a chance, you meet people outside your own department. I became good friends with a lot of people in Intel because of that tour. Anyway, that'll do it for part one of this. Part two, I'll talk about some more fallout from that first mess crank, and I'll talk about the situation surrounding my second time, which only lasted half a turn. So that's all I got for now. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. You future sailors going to the fleet in the ships, look forward to look forward or not look forward to mess cranking, but it's going to happen. And I'll catch you freaks on the flip side. Peace.